Chapter 12. Awakened and Carrying. The Hands He Wears Now. Step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics, and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Every meeting has a meeting after it, and everyone in the rooms knows it. The parking lot. The chairs are stacked, the urn is rinsed, the church basement lights are off, and out on the asphalt, under whatever the sky is doing, the people are still standing there in twos and threes, car keys in hand, not leaving. 20 more minutes. 40. Somebody's problem getting one more turn. Somebody's joke getting the laugh it deserved. The newcomer being told, casually, as if it were nothing, the phone numbers that will save his life. Nobody organized the parking lot. No literature governs it. It exists because of a simple physics that this final step is built on, and that this chapter, the warmest this book knows how to be, exists to explain. People who have been loved back to life cannot fully stop standing near each other. The love that reached them keeps low grade radiating off of them, and they linger in each other's warmth without knowing that is what they are doing. The 12th step is the parking lot, written down. It reads like 3 instructions. Wake up, carry the message, practice the principles everywhere, but it is one motion, the motion of light, which never does fewer than 3 things at once. It shines, it spreads, and it stays lit by spreading. This chapter is about that one motion. It is the last thing the program asks of you, and the first thing you will discover you were made for. Start with the clause that worries people: having had a spiritual awakening. Some readers arrive at step 12 and panic quietly, taking inventory of their interior fireworks and finding the display disappointing. Where was my white light? Bill Wilson got wind and radiance in a hospital room. The literature is full of hot flashes of grace. And you got Tuesdays. A slow procession of ordinary Tuesdays in which, somehow, you did not drink. Here, then, the gentlest page in all the program's literature, the little appendix the founders added precisely because people like you kept writing in worried. Most awakenings, they wrote, are of the educational variety. They develop slowly, over months, and are noticed the way dawn is noticed, which is to say, late. The sky has been lightening for an hour before anyone says the word morning. And the appendix names its authority for the claim. Of all people, William James, this book's old friend from the prologue, cited by name in the big book's own pages. The varieties of religious experience are varieties, and the slow kind counts, and is in fact the common kind. So do the honest audit, and do it the way this book taught you, both columns. Set aside what you did not feel and list what happened. You are reading a theology book, sober, voluntarily, and enjoying parts of it. You pray now, badly, daily, like a professional. Amends exist where wreckage was. The resentment that ran your decade gets visiting hours instead of custody. And somewhere in the last chapters, admit it, you caught yourself briefly, unreasonably glad. Friend. Something happened. The lamp this book has talked about since chapter 2 is what happened. The awakening was never going to be an acquisition. Remember, nothing was ever going to be added to you. The awakening is the unmasking. You, the given you, the theophany the wreckage never reached, finally showing, first to yourself, in the small astonishments of ordinary sober days, and now, whether you have noticed yet or not, to everyone standing near you in the parking lot. You did not have an awakening. You are one, mid-happening. Dawn does not experience the sunrise. Dawn is what the sunrise looks like from inside. Now the carrying. And first, the beautiful problem of what, exactly, you are supposed to carry. This message, the step says, with a definite article and no definition. Which message? You have just read 11 chapters of theology. Is the newcomer to be issued the two hands doctrine and quizzed on the dispensations? God forbid, and the founders knew better, and so do you. The message the step means is not information. You cannot carry it in a pamphlet, though pamphlets exist. You cannot say it completely, though saying helps. The message is a demonstration, and the demonstration is you, a specific human being, known to have been dead, visibly alive. When you sit across a kitchen table from a shaking man and say I was where you were, and mean it, with dates, you are not transmitting doctrine. You are being Exhibit A. The thing itself, breathing, in a chair, drinking coffee with a steady hand he watched you pour. That is the message. Testimony, not thesis. The room's whole epistemology in one move. And notice, warmly, whose epistemology it is. Aunt Dixie's, from her Christmas card. There is no way to fathom that reality without having been immersed in it. Immersion is the only credential this work honors, and here is the tender inversion that follows from it, the one the promises announced and you did not believe at the time. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. Read that sentence with this chapter's eyes. Your worst years, the ones you spent chapter 4 grieving and chapter 8 defeating, are, in this economy, your qualifications. The doctorate no seminary grants. The far country turns out to have been, among the other things it was, a language immersion program. You speak fluent bottom now, native accent, and somewhere tonight there is a man in that country who will not believe a single word about rescue except from someone with the accent. The professionals, God bless them, can offer him treatment. Only you can offer him recognition. This is the wound become credential. The wounded healer, the oldest pattern in the healing arts, and the deepest reason the fellowship works when nothing else does. The rescue teams are staffed entirely by the previously drowned. And now this book keeps the promise it made on a beach 8 chapters ago. You remember the starfish, the child after the storm, returning the stranded to the sea one at a time. It matters to this one. And you remember the first turn. That you were the starfish, and the hands that placed you back in the water, whatever human hands they wore that day, were his. Here is the second turn, and it is the whole 12th step in one sentence. Now yours are the hands he wears. When you take the newcomer's call at midnight, when you pour the coffee and say the thing only the accent can say, when you drive the man to the meeting he is terrified of and sit beside him in the back row, the inhypostatic logic of this whole book runs through you now. The Christ who met you at the bottom in disguise now meets the next one down, disguised as you. Sweatshirt, car keys, dated sobriety chip, and all. And the disguise runs double, which is the part that will take your breath away in the actual moment. The teacher himself said that whatever is done for the least, the hungry, the stranger, the sick, the one in prison, and every sponsor knows the newcomer is all for at once, is done for him. So look at what a 12th step call actually is, underneath the coffee and the folding chairs. Christ in you, serving Christ in him. The word wearing your hands, ministering to the word wearing his wreckage. The old teachers had a name for this that deserves rescue from the seminars. The whole Christ, head and members, the body being the body. And it means that the shabby miracle of a 2 a.m. diner conversation between two drunks is, ontologically, no small thing. It is the body of Christ, tending itself. Which brings this book, at last, to the room where everything happened. It has been circling the meeting since its first pages. The folding chairs, the bad coffee, the laminated slogans it teased in the prologue. And it can now say plainly what that room is, because you have the grammar. Here is the claim, and it is stronger than it sounds. The meeting is not where recovered people gather. The meeting is where recovery happens. Not the display case of the miracle, but its engine room. Not the place changed people report for mutual congratulation, but the place the changing occurs, and cannot occur without. The fellowship is not the amplifier of a grace given elsewhere to individuals. The fellowship is the medium, the enabling condition, the thing itself. You have felt this without the words for it. The obsession that would not lift alone lifting, mysteriously, in the chairs. The truth you could not tell yourself becoming tellable only with the room around it. The strength that is simply present at the tables and simply absent from your kitchen at 1 a.m., which is why they tell you to get to a meeting instead of telling you to try harder at home. And this book gave you the deep reason in chapter 5, and can now finish the sentence. Communion was given in you, original, ad intra, older than your exile. And what is given inwardly seeks its outward enactment the way the lamp seeks to shine, and the meeting is that enactment. The relative identity, the third strand of the original gift, becoming visible in a circle of chairs. When they said welcome home to you, a stranger, on your first terrified night, they were not being folksy. They were being precise. The church's own first chapters describe the pattern exactly. The Spirit descending not on scattered individuals who later compared notes, but on a room, on the gathered as gathered, tongues of fire distributed to each because all were together in one place. And the honest theologian, watching the rooms, can only say what this book's author has said elsewhere. The same structure, at another scale. Pentecost had folding chairs. And while you are seeing the meeting truly, see the thing about it that this book finds most quietly glorious, because it is the metaphysics of heaven being practiced on Thursday nights by people who would deny knowing any metaphysics at all. Look at the room. There is no head table. The man with 30 years and the woman with 30 days sit in identical chairs, at identical height, and when he shares he says I'm an alcoholic in exactly her grammar. Rank does not exist. Seniority confers coffee-making duty. And the only person accorded anything like precedence is, say it with the whole tradition smiling, the newcomer, the least, the most recently dead, the one the entire meeting exists for and would trade all its accumulated wisdom to reach. Nobody outranks anybody at the tables, and the elders even wrote the metaphysic into a saying, the one that has kept more members sane than any other. Don't compare your insides to someone else's outsides. Because the comparison game is not just bad for morale. It is false to reality. Grace does not come in amounts. Nobody in the room possesses more God than anybody else. The differences among the sober, like the differences among the saints, are not differences in dose but differences in manner, each one an unrepeatable way of showing the same undivided gift. 30 years being not more grace than 30 days but another posture of the identical grace, the way two windows do not compete for the one sun. This book will say it once here and once more at its close. When you want to know what heaven is like, you have been attending a working model weekly. Everyone wholly given the same presence, each showing it as no one else ever will. No ladder, no rankings, no head table, and the newest arrival the occasion of the most joy. There is more rejoicing, someone said, over the one. Heaven is a meeting. It always was. And the laughter. Do not leave the room without accounting for the laughter, the thing that scandalizes every first-timer. These people howl, telling stories that should end in weeping. The worst nights of their lives get punchlines. The room rocks. Visitors think it is gallows humor or denial. It is neither. It is the sound a verdict makes when it dies. The audible form of chapter 8. A horror that has lost its power to name the teller becomes, for the first time, tellable, and then, God help us, funny. Not because it was ever funny, but because the teller is now unmistakably larger than it, standing on top of what stood on him, and the laughter of the room as the fellowship's amen. It doesn't get the last word, does it? No, it never did. Resurrection, wearing its casual clothes, sounds exactly like a meeting laughing. There remains the strangest law of the whole economy, the one the rooms state as street wisdom, and this book can now show you as a window into the interior life of God. You can't keep it unless you give it away. Try to bank your sobriety. Hoard the serenity. Skip the calls. Consume the program privately like a wellness product. And it goes stale in your hands with the reliability of manna hoarded overnight. Every old timer has watched 100 quiet slips begin exactly there, in the keeping. Give it away. Inconvenient hours, undeserving recipients, no receipts, and it multiplies in the spending. The sponsor leaves the newcomer's kitchen more sober than he arrived. The speaker gets more from the talk than the audience. The hand you pull from the water somehow pulls you further up the beach. What kind of good behaves like that? Not the scarce kind. Scarcity is the economics of the bottle, of the hoard, of every idol you ever served. Idols run on shortage. It is how they keep you coming back. But light. One candle lights another and loses nothing, and the room grows brighter by pure addition, wealth that increases only and exactly by being spent. That is not a nice metaphor for grace. That is, this whole book has been whispering, the family trait. You were made. Chapter 2. First page of you. In the image of a God whose entire life is self-gift without self-loss, the fountain that fills every cup and lowers by nothing, the feast that grows by being eaten. Of course the sobriety multiplies when shared. It is his, and everything of his does that. Giving without diminishment is simply what the divine life is, and the 12th step is that life, running at last through the creature built for it. Which is why the giving does not feel, once you are inside it, like duty or tithe or payback. It feels. Everyone reports this, shyly, because it sounds like bragging, like finally operating according to spec. Like the first deep breath of an instrument played, at last, in its own key. The mystics, Summit says the same. Teresa of Avila, at the innermost mansion of the interior castle, at the very consummation of the mystical marriage, does not describe the soul dissolving into private rapture. She says, bluntly, in her kitchen Spanish way, that this is what all of it is for. Works. Works. And works. And works. Martha and Mary finally joining hands. The summit of the mountain of prayer turning out to be a door, and the door opening onto your neighbor. The top of the mountain is the bottom of the service ladder. The rooms put the same discovery on a keychain. Everyone arrives eventually at the one secret. The gift is a current, and the only way to have it is to conduct it. And notice, one warm paragraph more, the peculiar style of all this giving, because the style is a signature. It is anonymous. The fellowship stumbled into anonymity as protection and then discovered, in its bones, that it had found a spiritual foundation, principles before personalities, the self's name withheld precisely at the point of its best work. Think what that does, and to whom. The false self, the performer, the credit seeker, the resume builder that Chapter 1 diagnosed, cannot survive sustained anonymous service. It starves in the dark, it is denied. There is no deader end for the ego than excellence without attribution. But the true self, the lamp, the given theophany, was never shining for credit in the first place. Namelessness costs it nothing and frees it completely. Anonymous service is thus the most precise spiritual technology the rooms possess, the one activity that simultaneously feeds the real and fasts the counterfeit. And its warmth is doubled by its secrecy. Somewhere tonight a man's rent is paid, a ride appears, a chair is set up early and the coffee is on, and no one will ever know which quiet member did it. No one, that is, except the one who sees in secret, who has always had a marked fondness for exactly this style of operation, having invented it. Sunrises unsigned, rain on the just and unjust without a donor plaque, and one gift given namelessly in a manger, off the record, in the dark, to a world that mostly never caught the name. In all our affairs, the steps last clause, and the program's last enlargement. The principles do not stay in the basement. What you have become in these 12 movements is portable, and the whole point was always the portability. The honesty of step 1 at your job. The surrender of step 3 in your marriage. The prompt amends of step 10 in the checkout line where you were short with the kid. The conscious contact of step 11 at every red light in town. The program's founders were unambiguous that the steps are a design for living, not a treatment protocol. The spiritual life is not a theory, says the big book's most quoted line. We have to live it. And living it means the day, chapter 10, the contact, chapter 11, and the current, this chapter, braided into one ordinary, unspectacular, quietly luminous life. The kind of life that neighbors cannot quite explain and do not quite forget, the kind that carries the message mostly by being somewhere. The way a lamp does not argue for light. You will still be you. Funnier, if anything, the rooms improve everyone's material. You will still have Tuesdays. But the Tuesdays are lit now, and the light leaks, and the leaking is the mission. Not a project bolted onto your recovery, but your recovery, arrived at its own meaning. The awakened life is the carried message. You are the pamphlet now. Try to be a good translation. The disciples at Emmaus, you remember, recognized him at the table, and then, Luke says, they rose that same hour and returned to Jerusalem. That same hour, 7 miles back, in the dark, on foot, the road they had just walked in despair now run in joy. Because burning hearts do not sit. Recognition is fuel, the table sends. It has always been the last move of the pattern, and you have just made it. 11 steps in, you saw who was on the road, and the 12th stood you straight up and pointed you back toward the others. That is where this book's steps end, with you on the road at night, hurrying, glad, carrying news. But the book itself is not quite finished with you, because there is one thing left that the pattern promises and this book has not yet given you, the table itself. The recognition scene. The bread breaking. The faces. One of them belongs to a woman you met in chapter 8, and she has been waiting for you, and the last things this book knows about where the whole falling finally lands. Come to the table, then. The coda is set.